We're live.
Okay. Welcome to the ordinary meeting of the Dubbo Regional Council. I advise that this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. All those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements, and upon joining these online meetings, you accept the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archive of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. I now open the December 2022 ordinary council meeting of council, the time being 5:30 p.m. Councillor Goff, could I ask you to say the prayer, please?
O God, grant that by the knowledge of thy will, all we may resolve shall work together for good. We pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I will just mention, councillors, as Councillor Goff did then, if you stay seated when you're speaking rather than stand as you normally would, just so that the online viewers can hear the microphones or hear you through the microphones easier. Thank you. Councillor Burns, could I ask you to acknowledge the country, please?
Yes. I'd like to acknowledge Tabagara Rectory people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging of the Rectory Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people from other nations to our country.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. The next item on the agenda is 307, leave of absence. We have all councillors here, so no requirement there. Next item, CCL 22/308, conflicts of interest. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest as an overabundance of disclosure in item CCL 22/323 to draft Macquarie River Master Plan North and South Precincts, as I own a rental property in North Dubbo that is in the vicinity of but doesn't adjoin the riverbank ovals and won't be affected by any changes or developments that may or may not occur as a result of this master plan, and I'll remain in the room for that item.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. That same item as Councillor Black. In fact, CCL 22/323, draft Macquarie River Master Plan, a non-pecuniary, less than significant interest in that item. I'm a resident of and own property in Regan Park, although my property does not adjoin nor overlook that particular parcel of land referred to in that particular item, so I will remain in the room for that the discussion of that item. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Are there any other conflicts, councillors? No, there being none, I'll move that on to the next item, CCL 22/309, public forum. And on that particular item, we've got no registered speakers, but as per our code of meeting practice, if there's anyone in the public gallery who would like to come forward and speak on any topic related, then they're more than welcome to come forward. No, there being none, we'll move on. The next item, CCL 22/310, confirmation of minutes. Councillor, I'll move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Wright. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Now, the next item, councillors, is a mayoral minute, and the mayoral minute is CCL 22/311, expression of interest for the Greens update. Now, councillors have that in your hub there at the moment, and so that's there. The public watching that won't have this yet, but that'll be uploaded to the business paper so that if you want to see that, and we'll go through it in a moment. Now, I'll move that way to mayoral minute, so I don't get a seconder for that. Discussion or debate about the recommendation. So this isn't about the actual expression of interest, the detail of that. At the moment, all this is about is saying that we're going to move to confidential and deal with that in a confidential environment, given the fact that they are various expressions of interest that are being received by council. So the recommendation, and just for the members of the public, I'll read that out. The members of the press and public are excluded from the meeting during consideration of this item. The reason being the matter concerns commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. The council determined the successful business organisation from the expression of interest sufficient for a licence agreement for 74 Warren Street in the Greens. The consideration of this item will be deferred to the end of the meeting to be considered with other confidential items at the December 2022 meeting. That will be made public which business organisation is successful and the amount that we'll be paying for the use of 74 Warren Street in the Greens. So any discussion or debate on those points? Now, if that goes through as is, then we'll continue on with the rest of the agenda, and that will then be dealt with at the end of the meeting and in a confidential component of council. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. I'll just double check, so that should go online and download those from the actual council website where the newspapers are, and they'll be included in there. I assume, Ms. Wade, that's included as part of the newspapers. There'll be a new version of those, or will be separate documents?
It's a separate document at this stage, and tomorrow we'll reload the agenda.
Okay, so it's a separate document for anyone watching online. Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item is CCL 22/312, mayoral appointments and meetings. That's I'll move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Discussion on debate, councillors. Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against, declare that carried. CCL 22/313, building summary, November 2022. That's I'll move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Etheridge, seconded by Councillor Wright. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just some clarification, possibly. So there's a table on page, page 16 of that particular report, actually, that just showed estimate value of approval applications between 2021 and 2022 of the month of November. I think 2022 showed about 20,300,000, whereas 2021 was 50,900,000. Quite a significant difference between the two. Just wondering to get a bit of clarity on such a huge difference between 2021 and 2022 for November.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll go to the CEO.
Through to Mr Wallace. Thank you, and through the Chair. In the same period last year, for the month of November, that included the one-off $27 million development that contributed to that $50 million figure, and that was for a police training facility. And the lower figure this financial year for November, what that didn't include was $45 million worth of development that was approved by Council, here at Council, on the 24th of November. So that'll show up in next month's figures. So whilst it might look a bit lower at $20 million, it's a bit arbitrary. Probably should be a bit higher, but that will be caught up in the fullness of time in the overall figures.
Very good.
Mr Wallace, I suppose the really important one, Councillor Wright, will be when we get to the end of the financial year. It's good to see how we're tracking along those, but it's good to see what happens at the end of the financial year when some of those timing differences occur, as Mr Wallace explained. Anything further, Councillor Wright, on that?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, councillor, or debate in relation to the building summary? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. CCL 22/314, investment under Section 625 of the Local Government Act. So I'll move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Ivey, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. CCL 22/315, report of the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group. Have that moved, Councillor Burns. Thank you. Have it seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Burns, you wish to speak to that particular motion?
Thank you.
Sorry, that's right. No, it's still going. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Burns. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just, I think, wanted to mention that it's been really positive with the approach that we are going with the Reconciliation Action Plan for Dubbo Regional Council. But in addition to that, some of the things I think that we are able to have conversations about and start planting seeds is what we think about what looks like in the future for Dubbo Regional Council on 26th of January next year. So watch this space. I'm just hoping the community are engaged in the future thinking. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Any other questions on the debate, councillors? Being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 22/316, report of the Multicultural Advisory Committee. Councillor Chowdhury, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Chowdhury, you wish to speak to that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to give a little bit a brief for that committee meeting. Actually, that committee meeting is really going well. Last meeting we had a multicultural minister. He joined. we have our state member, Dougal Sunders, has joined, and Dabo Chamber of Commerce and few other stakeholders joined, and we had an open discussion for our migration gap, multicultural services gap analysis, and we had found few issues that we working together, and I hope through this gap analysis report we can really bring some changes for the community, so whoever coming as a newcomer, they'll feel more comfortable to settling here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Any other questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 22/317, the report of the Spark Committee. Councillor Wright, so moved, and seconded by Councillor Black. Councillor Wright, would you speak to that motion?
Just quickly, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in that particular report there, Spark item 22/14 discussed the public arts strategy. Just talked a little bit about the community feedback on that particular item there. There were 7 community consultations spread across Dubbo and Wellington just as a part of that public art framework strategy and policy that's being developed. There was, it'll note in the report there, 32 online submissions and only a handful of people attending the community consultation. I know we've talked a little bit about this in previous instances. We'll talk about it again in a little bit later when we come across another particular item that requires some community feedback. But there is a huge emphasis on the community helping us to shape these policies, and there is a draft strategy that will go to council in hopefully in the new year, and it'll be back on public display for the community to discuss and provide feedback again. So I really encourage people, if you're interested in art or if you're not, have a look at this. It is really going to shape how the city may look from an art perspective, and art just isn't about paintings hanging in a gallery. It's about all sorts of things, and especially some interpretation around art and the river is a really important one as well. So I encourage anyone to get behind that, have a look at it, and keep your eyes out for it, because we'll continue to call on you, the public, to help us shape what these particular items look for going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 22/318, Renewable Energy Benefit Framework. Councillor, move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Showery, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Showery, you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate this for this report, because it gives council a bit more power to negotiate with solar and wind energy firm for their capital investment for 1.5%, and also we'd like to see those money can go back to the community and do a lot of community, sort of helping the local community. I have one question through you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any other council do the similar sort of work, like except Dabo and Armidale? Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Councillor Showery. Through you, CEO, to Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace.
And I'll pass through to Manager of Growth Planning.
Mr. James.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, the 1.5% of capital investment value is becoming an industry benchmark, most definitely in the renewable energy zones, especially the Central Western Orana and the New England Northwest. Both Warren-Bungle and Midwestern councils also are looking to take a similar approach, so it's fairly consistent with where the industry is going at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Happy with that, Councillor Showery? Any more?
Yes, no, good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Black. That's right. Councillor Marr.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a further question on these planning agreements. Do they also encompass the battery storage type facilities, or even possibly a hydro facility down the track?
Thank you, Councillor Marr. Through CEO to Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In respect of the framework's only looking at solar and wind development. Regarding batteries, batteries aren't included in the framework at the moment, just based on the fact that they will have a different cost and financial structure. Notwithstanding that, we are currently talking to 3 separate battery proponents in the res, and hopefully we'll be in a position to come to council in the early new year with a planning agreement as well. So I won't go into detail obviously at the moment, but yeah, it looks quite promising as well, and is consistent with where sort of battery directions are going as well. From there, in respect of hydro, no, it's not in the framework. There hasn't been any hydro development in the Central Western Arana Res or the New England Northwest Res at this stage. If we did have a hydro development come up, it would be something that we would look to handle at that time, and any planning agreement obviously comes back to council for consideration as well.
Thank you, Mr Jennings. I'd probably just add one minor component of that, Councillor Mann, just the point that this framework obviously is something that we're trying to get some sort of standardisation. One of the issues that we face is that any wind farm has a compulsory component for a planning agreement, but solar farms and batteries don't have any compulsory component for any planning agreement. Obviously, via this mechanism, what we're trying to do is encourage those solar operators as well. Wind, yes, they have to, encouraging those solar operators to have some sort of benefit back to those communities. So it's interesting, and that may well change in the future from the state government perspective, but at this stage, non-compulsory for solar, non-compulsory for battery.
Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Martin?
No, thanks.
Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You've probably answered one of my questions then. And my question was the enforceability of this. It's a planning agreement, but as I understand it, as you just said, for solar and other things, it's still voluntary. Proponent can, as I understand it, can still not agree to make that contribution. Does the introduction of this planning agreement absolve the wind farms from having to make their current statutory contribution? So that's one question there. The other question then is the 1.5% negotiable if it's in a situation where perhaps for whatever reason it is going to cause more community or has more community effect than in another area? Is there an opportunity to increase the 1.5%? And also the other question is what is the relationship between this planning agreement or the regional benefit fund and the community benefit funds that exist at present for wind farms?
So I'll take those one at a time. Councillor Ivey, the statutory process there for wind farms, having to go through to UCO for that?
I'll start first, but no, the statutory requirements are the statutory requirements. That's regulation and legislation.
Second question was the 1.5% negotiability of that?
The policy setting, 1.5% is a good get and better than what we've ever got before and what anyone else is getting apart from one deal. So you can always negotiate, but this is a policy setting that target.
And the third one was in relation to, just remind me, that's where Councillor Ivey?
The relationship between this benefit fund,
the benefit fund. Sorry, so these...
That's dropping a bit of nuance, Mr Mayor, if I could throw Mr Jennings.
Thanks, through you, Mr Chair. The current community benefit funds that council has, nothing changes in that respect. There's no change there. The benefit framework talks of the fact that we recognise the importance of community benefit funds and also encourage proponents to play in that space as well.
So, Mr Jennings, just further so that any agreement that we might come to from a council perspective, there might also be an additional community benefit fund separate to that process.
Through you, Mr Mayor, probably both ways. A community benefit fund could be part of a planning agreement, as we've got the planning agreement with the Ongla Wind Farm, with CWP Renewables and also with Benangra as well. Or otherwise it could be another mechanism outside of that as well. There's no set playbook to say this must be this way or this way, so to speak.
So the summary of that, Councillor Ivey, is anything goes. Basically. It still seems like a very jumbled, mess is too strong a word, but certainly a jumbled process to get consistency out there. And I suppose that's something that we've been talking to government about as well, as trying to get some consistency in the process. Further questions?
Can I just ask one other question then, Mr Mayor? So, in respect of any future project that's been approved as a state significant project, will any decision on the planning agreement come back to council? Or, in other words, if planning agreement will be proposed for a new wind farm or a new solar farm, the planning agreement will be talked with the proponent. Does the final sign off on that come back to council?
To you, CEO, you want to
Pretty easy one. Yes.
Right.
But,
And the draft, sorry.
so that will come to council, but the big issue is that we aren't the consent authority.
Planning agreements we are, but again, if you want a bit of nuance, I might throw to Mr Jennings if you're comfortable with it.
All right, so, through you, Mr Mayor, planning agreements, basically the way they are undertaken, a draft has to come here to the council, to a council meeting for adoption for purposes of public display. Following the 28-day public exhibition period, they have to come back as well for council's consideration of any submissions.
So further that, Mr Jennings, then, I'll jump in from hopefully what Councillor Ivey was thinking. So we could approve something, but the proponent may not necessarily agree to that, and we aren't the consent authority, so we don't get the opportunity to say no to the proponent as such.
Thanks. Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of the process for negotiating planning agreements, ordinarily we would come close to terms in terms at a staff level before we do get to come to council and say this is the case from there. There will be some situations in the future where we may not quite get to terms at that level, and that's where council would have to make that call ultimately in that process.
I suppose my point there is, was that, let's say, for example, it came to council and council voted that we don't want 1.5%, we want 3%, then the proponent is not obliged to go down that path because, again, we go through the SSD process, which means that we don't get to say yes or no.
Yes.
So negotiation is our best tool rather than a council resolution, if I can suppose that to you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, definitely the planning agreement process relies heavily on negotiation between the council and a proponent. So in terms of if it was for a solar farm development, the Department of Planning and Environment may not be involved in any planning agreement discussions. So where that comes into more with the wind or with wind proposals, that's where the department would need some certainty between the proponent and the council as to what that terms of their draft planning agreement would be.
So thank you, Councillor Ivey. I'll repeat my further comments that it does sound like a bit of a jumbled mess to get to a final outcome.
Mr Mayor, look, I thought that may well be the case, but notwithstanding that, it is still a really good idea doing this planning agreement, at least from our point of view, saying what we think should happen. Now, whether we can make it happen will be another thing down the track, but at least we have said what we want. And you just do a few calculations. I think the 1.5% is probably fairly good. If you look at what Bedanga are paying and what Yungala are proposed to pay per annum for 25 years and discount that back to its present value, it actually works out at less than, I think, on less than 1.5% of the proposed cost. So a new arrangement actually would perhaps be more favourable than the present contribution. So, look, it's a move in the right direction. I think it's good, but let's not think that it's the answer. I think there's still a fair bit more work to do.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that carried. Next item is CCL 22/319, operational review of the Dubbo Regional Local Environmental Plan 2022. So I'll move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Black. Seconded by Councillor Goff. Councillor Black, you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that carried. Next item is CCL 22/320, Zero Emissions Fleet Strategy and Implementation Plan. So I'll move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Black. Seconded by Councillor Showery. Councillor Black, you wish to speak to that?
I only to comment the author of the report on a fantastic report, very comprehensive. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Other discussion, Councillor Showery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a fantastic report, and I just like to point out one thing. During this consultation period, there was only 0 submission from the community. So, I would encourage the community to submit, engage more in future when you do this sort of planning. But I have one question through you, Mr. Mayor. Is council have any plan for next 5 years? What the percentage of zero emission, like electric vehicle or zero emission fleet, we can add in our council fleet.
So further, this is obviously applying specifically to light vehicles, and you're talking about some other changes they might make in our medium or heavy vehicles.
Yeah, just overall, like, is there any like a plan for like the percentage of what like if you can?
I'll go through CEO to Mr. Colliver.
Yes.
Mr. Colliver, sorry, Mr. Colliver, you want to come down to the microphone?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just get that question again, please?
So it's really in relation to, obviously, this report focuses specifically on our light vehicle fleet. It's really about other plans over, say, the next 5 years that you might have for other vehicles across, whether it be medium vehicles, medium-sized vehicles, heavy vehicles, just across the board, what other vehicles you might be proposing in terms of electric, hydrogen, zero emissions, essentially.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the strategy itself addresses the whole range of the fleet. We see the heavy vehicle segment changing around 2025, more than likely hydrogen. So the strategy itself sets out every segment of the fleet. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Colliver. Just stay there one moment. Anything further, Councillor
No,
Chair?
I'm good, thank you.
And I think the comment about the submissions, Mr. Colliver would say that you wrote such an excellent report, there's no need for any public members to put a submission in. I think that's the logic for Mr. Colliver. So just stay there 1 second, Mr. Colliver, see if there's any other questions for you. Any other questions or debate, councillors, in relation to this? Okay, sorry, Councillor Wright?
Just a comment, actually. Look, this particular report was presented at the Climate Change and Resilience Committee only last week, in fact, and the comments through amongst the committee was that it was a rather detailed report, and I think even a lot of the members in that committee were probably quite surprised at how much or how advanced maybe council were on considering this as an overall strategy for to move towards that zero emissions fleet. So yes, well done. It was a great report, and I think again encourage the community to have a read through that, and they can see where council sits with respect to that plan over the next 5-10 years into the future.
And I think further than Councillor Wright, there were some members of that committee who were quite surprised that even though you see here ticket prices for EVs, when you read the report that Mr. Colliver put together about the total cost of ownership, then electric vehicles are very attractive. In fact, much cheaper than equivalent vehicles in some circumstances. So I think it was a bit of an eye-opener for some of those members of the committee. Thank you. So you know, Mr. Colliver, you don't get to join the debate, I'm sorry. Only the question was directed at you unless a council wanted to ask Mr. Colliver a certain question to give him that leeway.
I could ask him what he was going to say.
Yes, you can ask that. Mr. Colliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As much as I'd like to take credit for that report, Katrina Jennings was the predominantly driver of that, and I'd like to acknowledge her in this forum if I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colliver. So, councillors, I think that will be, from what I've seen across the council, across the state specifically, and probably more across the nation, once, if this goes through tonight, I think you'll see that this council will be leading the way, because there are other councils that are looking at this council to see what we're doing with that, and I'm sure they'll very politely ask Mr. Colliver to take some of the information there for some reports to their own council. Now, Councillor Black, right of reply, would you wish to exercise it?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, have that before us. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Next item is CCL 22/321, providing order of Cameron Park in Wellington. Councillor Goff so moved and seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Goff, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank the staff for this report. I really want to urge other councillors to consider this for the next financial budget. I do believe this is something that's going to be needed in Wellington to keep Cameron Park as a safe space and create more connectivity within the community. Yes, there's initially some things we can do very quickly for a quick fix, but yeah, long term, I think this is probably the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Any other questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'd reinforce Councillor Goff's comments. I think it is of great high importance that we do upgrade the standard of lighting in Cameron Park. It's a fantastic resource of Wellington, Cameron Park. It used to be the jewel in the crown, really, of Wellington. And certainly it would be great to see it used more, particularly at night. The fact that the standard of lighting has been deteriorating to the stage it has, I think, is very unfortunate to say the least. So if we can just identify within the report the things that need to be done and give it some priority down the track, I think it'll be a great benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Wright.
Just noting that report there, the proposed cost of potentially $250,000. But I see, just reading some of the comments there, are there plans for council to look at some quick fixes in there, and possibly an opportunity to cover some of those quick fixes as maintenance rather than a replacement of an asset?
Certainly, I'll go through CEO to Ms. Basingate, please. Ms. Basingate, thank you.
Any maintenance required is enacted, so any default that is identified to be lodged in the system.
So ongoing maintenance essentially is Basingate and not infrastructure upgrades, basic maintenance. Sounds like that is your question, Councillor Wright.
Have there been other items that have come to light as a result of this particular investigation into the lighting at the park that we weren't aware of that we can attend to just repairing?
I'll ignore the very bad pun there in terms of coming to light and give the CEO to...
Good pick up,
Mr. McAllister. Sorry, to Mr. McAllister. If you,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a number of items that we have enacted, including there's a break in a cable that we've discovered. We're currently seeking quotes from electricians, Wellington electricians, so that we can get those repaired in the short term, and that'll make a significant improvement in lighting, in the short term.
Any further, Councillor Wright?
No, thank you. No more puns.
That's good. And again, even though it was a long-term project, it had some short-term benefits as well, so it's good. Any other questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Goff, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, we have that before us, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. CCL 22/322, draft Wellington Street Tree Master Plan. Someone move that, please. Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, discussion or debate, councillors. Councillor Ivey.
Sorry, you.
Councillor Ivey, yes.
Right. Look, I'd commend the report. It's again, it's great to have a master plan that deals with an important factor, such an important factor as trees. The whole ambience of the area and the whole appearance of the area is really dependent upon the streetscapes and public spaces and areas like that. And if we can say, okay, we can identify areas where improvements can be made, where extra trees can be planted, and consider it as a long-term investment to increase the whole standard of the area, I think it's to be commended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Other questions or debate? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to encourage people of Wellington especially to make a submission, have a read of the report and make a submission. Tell us what you want to do in your town. Thank you.
Councillor Black. Other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Goff, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. CCL 22/322 before us. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 22/323, draft Macquarie River Master Plan, North and South Precincts. So I'll move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
First, just declaring a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in that particular item. I am a resident and a property owner in Regan Park, but my property does not adjoin or overlook that particular parcel of land referred to there, so I'll remain in the room for the conversation if I can. Thank you.
I'll come back to you to speak to it in a moment. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too will declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in this item out of an overabundance of disclosure, as I own a rental property in North Dubbo that's in the vicinity of but doesn't adjoin the Riverbank Ovals and won't be affected by any changes or developments that may or may not occur as a result of this master plan, and I'll remain in the room for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Obviously, the draft Macquarie River Master Plan, especially the South Precinct, has been a rather a popular topic of conversation amongst the residents in the city. Again, this is a draft we're looking at here that was formulated off the back of community consultation, and I've just got a question through you, Mr Mayor, to maybe the relevant director there. Just a question regarding the number of written surveys that the council had from the public, and maybe an approximation of the number of people who took the time to attend some of those workshops and give their feedback. Do you have some indicative numbers of that?
Certainly through CEO to Ms. Basingway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There was about 450 survey results submitted to the consultants, and of those they were invited to attend the Butter Paper workshops. Of that, we had a mixed review between the morning and afternoon session. There was about 80 to 100 in the first session for the South Precinct, and the North Precinct may have had 40, and then in the second afternoon session there was 40 or 50 people in the second session for the South and about 20 for the North.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, just on that, just to clarify, Ms. Basingway, so 80 to 100, for example, in the South in the first session, say 40 in the second session, were there...
Similar people.
Some of the same people came second time, so they weren't necessarily 40 separate people coming the second time around.
So for the Regan Park 80, there was people that left that session because they weren't attending the North, and there was additional people that would not come for the South and came for the North. So people were invited to come to the session that was relevant to them, but only come to one morning or afternoon session.
So there weren't duplicates amongst those numbers, they were all individuals. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright, continue on.
Yeah, thank you for that. And look, so just summarising now on the assumption that they were all unique visitors to each of those. We had 450 surveys and around, let's call it 180 to about 220 participants in those surveys, which compared to a lot of the community consultation that we request, they're pretty good numbers. But from a city of, or an LGA of nearly 50,000 people, that's not a lot. And we've heard a lot of noise over this particular item through the community, and again, we call on the community to give us their feedback and their thoughts and ideas on a particular topic, which is a hot topic and something that's extremely important for the future users of the city, not just us sitting here. So again, this is a draft report. It's been formulated by the information that the community's provided. It's going to go back for public consultation, and again, as a community member and as a councillor, I urge community to get on, have a look at this thing, provide your comments and your feedback, because that information is what is going to help us come up with a particular strategy or a master plan that you will be looking at probably for the next 10, 20, 30 years or for the rest of your lifetime of the city. So it is extremely important. I'd love to, they're great numbers, the people who have participated, that's fantastic. Tap your friends on the shoulder, your relatives, your kids, whoever it might be, get them involved in this, because this is a really important strategy and we need the whole of the community be behind it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Shadow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just echoing with Councillor Wright that this plan is just a draft and it came through the public consultation. I'll urge also to the community. It's going back to the community, I think, from next week. The public exhibition will start till February, and I will request everyone and urge every committee member to please participate, because then we can take a right decision for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shadow. Just to point out a point that you made there, the plan at this stage, in terms of the report that's to council, is that the report should come back on the 23rd of March to the March council meeting. Obviously, there'll be consultation before the process. Thank you, Councillor Shadow. Further questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells, then Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose I wanted to echo Councillor Wright and Councillor Chowdhury's comments around wanting the community to ensure that they have a look and have their commentary and have their say. Counting the number of surveys we had in comparison to the number of people that attended the forums, it's really important that community have their voice. They are the voice of the community to tell us where we want to go, like as what Councillor Wright said. This is open for 3 months, and it's plenty of time for people to get their voices and their thoughts heard. And it's not just the South Precinct, it's the North West Precinct as well. And there's lots of different ideas and views around what should be happening in that area. And I can't urge people enough to please have your say so that we get some strong guidance from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Ivey.
Yes, I was going to really make the same sort of comments that Councillor Wells just made. It is such an important document, and it's such an important issue that we want maximum public feedback to it. I just presume it's going to be fairly important that within this draft management plan that's put out for public comment, that we have a pretty good preamble with it, or some good publicity out to the public saying what the role of their feedback is, or what the process is. It's not just necessarily to comment on the whole report in general. It can be anything. It can be commenting on some specific issues in there. It can be commenting on what's not in there that should be in there. And so I think it's very important that the public realise that, yes, here's a draft management plan, but it's exactly that. It's a draft. They can come back with whatever feedback, comments, suggestions they want to, and really the more the better.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to reiterate that point, that this is a fluid working document and that people have an opportunity to make submissions, and I hope they would make submissions. I'd just like to say that there appears to be some really good aspects of this plan. We seem to have Regan Park as a public open space area for passive recreation with some good barbecue areas and those sort of things. There's some sporting fields included, but I do have a couple of reservations about the plan. One being that there was a motion moved and adopted in September to look at a whole citywide aspect of where sporting grounds might go. That with this we seem to have limited ourselves to only putting sporting fields along the river in this precinct. I believe that Dubbo does need more sporting fields, and it will in the future, and I'm not against sporting fields, but I'm more interested in where the sporting fields go, not if we get the sporting fields. The river is a unique feature of Dubbo. We only have the one river. There's a finite amount of public land along the river, and I'm just not 100% convinced that this report has got this balance correct, especially in the northwest open space area opposite across the river from Devil's Elbow. It's got listed as 6 cricket grounds and footy fields there, but I think it's probably pretty important that the public realise that that's just a bit of a fluid working document. It could change into the future. What else did I want to say on this? There really is no rush to put this out and adopt it. This will be for the next couple of 100 years. We know that Victoria Park No. 1 Oval, we've seen that recently, is over 100 years old. That'll still be there in 100 odd years' time. So as a council, I think that we really should not rush into this, that before we adopt anything, we really need to have a look at the whole city-wide, where sporting fields might go. It might be that they should be all along the river. There might be nowhere else. But the community has said they want sporting fields, but they didn't necessarily say that they had to be right on the river. They were only given this small little sliver along the river as an option. So I'd really encourage the community to make comment. It's important to put a dollar value on the amenity value of land along the river to the public. It's all right to say, oh yeah, but it just gets flooded, we can't build houses there. But there's only one river, there's only one area for people to go and enjoy that river, only one area along that river. So that's really important. Basically, yes, the community, you've got your chance now, have a say and let us know what you would like in the final plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to note that as a reminder to everyone, this is an independent consultant doing the draft master plan. So making submissions is important. It's not done internally at council, it's being done independent and out of town. I beg to disagree with Councillor Black. I think putting the sporting fields on the riverbank will really promote and have a great overlook of our beautiful river, and having them together, the sporting fields in close to each other, will encourage more sporting events, and we can really show off our beautiful river that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Any further discussion of the late councillors? Councillor Wright, you wish to exercise your right of reply?
I just wanted to also just call out the fact that there is public exhibition at the moment, the Northwest Urban Release Area Precinct Plan. That particular plan also has a number of public recreation spaces noted in it, and obviously runs along that river corridor in that Northwest Precinct. So if we have got members of the community that are interested in seeing how that Northwest Precinct might fit in future residential developments, then certainly jump on and have a look at that. I believe, though, it's only open until Friday the 16th of December, so only next week. So if you've got an opportunity to, and you want to try and join the puzzle together, if you like, then certainly jump on and have a look at that as well. That's available on the council website too.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. We have the motion before us at the moment. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item, CCL 22/324, Macquarie Regional Library Performance Report. Councillor, will move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Goff, you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other discussion of the late councillors? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 22/325, Dubbo Regional Council Alcohol-Free Zones Reinstatement for 2023. Any conflicts of interest need to be declared here? Have someone move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Showery, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Showery, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question, we are going do the again, we're putting this again in place. Just, is there any new area we have added in that plan, or is just existing plan?
Thanks, Councillor Showery. Through you, Mr. CEO.
Not to my understanding, but I'll just double check through Ms. Beckenfeld.
So, no,
No, there's no experience.
just the reinstatement of those previous ones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Showery. Any other questions or debate? Councillor Iden.
I'd support the motion, Mr Mayor. I think, not because I think it really solves a problem that is there. I think probably really there's no great problem there. I know in Wellington most of the areas have been before the imposition of this prohibition, and subsequently it did actually lapse last September, so for nearly the last year and a bit we haven't had that restriction. There hasn't been any increase in alcohol related problems there because that prohibition had lapsed, but nonetheless I think it's a very good idea to have it so that at least for policing purposes or for other purposes, if it needs to be enforced, then there's some legislative framework that it can be. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ivey. Any further discussion of the councillors? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 22/326, Australia Day Civic Events for 2023. Councillor, move that. Councillor Burns moves. Someone second that, please. Councillor Wells. Councillor Burns, you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the election policies that I wrote on my council was unity and community, and basically when I was doing that, it was about breaking down the barriers between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And I thought I'd follow up with that by attending the Australia Day this year in Dubbo. I haven't been to Australia Day for I don't know how long, because I'm usually attending the Survival Day events. I put me out with, put me,
What do you
Money
mean
where your
about
mouth
this?
is.
where my mouth is. I don't know money, so I just put where my mouth is. And I decided to attend the Australia Day celebrations, and it was a lovely day for me. It was a good day because Ben came along as well, and we were well received at the Australia Day celebrations, even though we were expected at the Survival Day celebrations pretty soon after. But it was good to be at Australia Day celebrations and part of the citizenship ceremony. It was awesome to just see that there was one step made between coming together, or togetherness. So I'm hoping this get through because it's a start, as far as I'm concerned, towards understanding each other's feelings towards the day. So that's all I can say. That's all I support it.
Councillor Burns. Any other speakers? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to echo Councillor Burns's comments there and speak to the significance of what 26th of January means to Aboriginal people, and that what's happening with this council and the acknowledgement and how we can, in unity and collaboration as a collective, do much more culturally appropriate events or engagement on that day is a great step forward for Dubbo Regional Council. As well, and the event that happens across in Wellington as well. I think that the learnings and the emerging interest across the nation around the Uluru Statement from the Heart and so many other things happening for Australia, that this is a great, where I see us as leading the way in starting to incorporate culture in what we're trying to achieve on that day, and also as a collective, as a multicultural community as well. But I don't want us to forget about what our Aboriginal people are fighting for in terms of voice. So, and I see that coming through in what we're trying to achieve on 26th of January in 2023. So I'm looking forward to see how that goes. Thank you.
Councillor Wells. Other speakers, questions of late councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I very much support this move. If I can speak from Wellington's, what's proposed from Wellington is that we actually have the presentation of the Australia Day Awards and the official function, if you like, on the eve of the 26th of January. It makes sense to do it in that way for lots of reasons. As both Councillor Wells and Councillor Burns have said, let's try to unite the two areas within our society. Let's get to the stage perhaps where we don't have Australia Day and Survival Day. We just have a recognition day that recognises everything that's good about Australia and recognises where we've come from and what the components are of our present-day society. The fact that we are proposing that for Wellington, that embracing both Indigenous, multicultural and European settlement, if you like, the fact that we're doing that and that we have got it, particularly within Wellington, with a good deal of support, I believe, it just highlights how far we've come from not very long ago. You might remember, it's in Farm Cove, we used to have on the 26th of January a reenactment of Governor Phillip rowing ashore and planting the flag next to the Opera House or something. And the fact that we've now got to the stage of recognising that on the day that happened, there was 60,000, 40, 50, 60,000 years of culture that effectively changed. It was never going to be the same again after that day. No matter what happened, no matter whether whoever did it or whatever reason, the fact is that it changed. It came to an end. And the fact that we should recognise that and recognise the breadth and the absolute wonderful culture that Indigenous and First Nation people have, and let's try to really promote that in the community. I think in Wellington we've got the opportunity to do that. On the evening of the 26th, on the twilight meeting on the 25th, we will have an official ceremony. We will have an address by an ambassador, an address by an Aboriginal Indigenous person. We will be able to hopefully have some display of Aboriginal arts and crafts within Cameron Park. We'll have multicultural food stalls. We will have, as I say, the presentation of the the Citizenship Awards, which is really rewarding people within our community for what they do and what they contribute. And if we can just manage to get it where the society says, isn't this fantastic? This is what modern day Australia is about. I think we've achieved something. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just echoing with my fellow councillors. I think this is a great idea to bringing everyone together, and I'm really looking forward to join, and I hope our community will accept very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just ask the Wellington community to keep an open mind and don't think of it as Wellington playing second fiddle. This is a chance for Wellington to take the lead and be pioneers in creating change and taking into the consideration of our Aboriginal community and their thoughts and their feelings towards this.
Thank you, Councillor Coffin. Just to point out for anyone watching online that the process is slightly different in Dubbo and Wellington for a specific reason. Our initial intention was to actually move both events to a twilight event, both in Dubbo and Wellington, but in discussions with the Department of Home Affairs, there was a trigger of 20 conferees a year. Once a community or a city or town has more than 20 conferees throughout the year, they must hold a citizenship ceremony on Australia Day on the 26th of January. So Dubbo had more than 20 conferees per year, 20 new citizens, if you like, at a citizenship ceremony. So we must hold that on Australia Day. Wellington has less than 20, so we actually were allowed to move that back to a twilight event the night before. So it wasn't something that we were happy with. We argued the toss with the Department of Home Affairs. Ultimately, they trump us, so we have to go along with those rules. We're hopeful this is a trial for 1 year. We're hopeful that maybe next year, maybe the year after, those rules might change with the Department of Home Affairs, and potentially this might change to a trial event in both. But again, a trial, let's see how it goes in both communities to start with. Further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells, you've had debate. You can ask a question. You can't enter the debate again. No? Fine. Councillor? No? Any other questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Burns, you do have a right of reply if you wish to exercise that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just often say that everybody so far that wanted to talk has supported it. Basically, there's not going to be any change until we make change. So hopefully we're going in the right direction. We don't know if we're making the right decision. We've got to try. So thank you. That's all I'll say.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Okay, we have that before us now, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Okay, next item is CCL 22/327, purchase of land for rural fire service. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Showry. Second by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Showry, do you wish to speak to this?
No, I'm good, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Just a comment, a comment or a question. There seems to be a lot of noise within the Office of Local Government about the state government pushing some of this responsibility onto councils. Through you, Mr. Mayor, does staff have, or sorry, the CEO have an opinion on that particular issue?
I'll ask the CEO, who may have an opinion, he may refrain from exercising any right to express an opinion, but you might have some facts that you might want to deal with, Mr. CEO.
To your point, Mr. Mayor, yes, information rather than opinion. Council has been doing this for some time, certainly Dubbo City, and that's been carried forward. I can't just talk about pre-merge, I'm just not familiar with that. But councils, a number of councils have been doing this for a long time. There's a debate from local government, New South Wales, about what they call the red fleet, and us councils having to do this administration and cater for the depreciation of rural fire service assets. So it's on our books. There is a treatment that work around, effectively an in and out type treatment, but there is some controversy about this council's been doing it for some time. I think where the controversy from what I see has come about, where councils now have been told by the Audit Office that they'll shut account for RFS assets. So if that's new to you as a council, it's coming as a nasty shock. Council's been, in our area, has been doing that for some time.
Thank you, CEO. Any further from that, Councillor Ivey?
No, thank you.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Note that report just refers to the fact there's be no additional costs of council to acquire that land or purchase it. But from an ongoing maintenance perspective, I must get some clarity that all maintenance associated with the construction of a shed on that particular dwelling, the maintenance of the yard itself, fencing, whatever it might be, is not the responsibility of this council at all?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. To you, CEO.
That's correct, but if we do have something like service of a fleet vehicle, what have you, we get those costs recovered. So it's net zero.
Thank you, CEO. Any further on that, Councillor Wright?
No, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 22/328, questions on notice. Councillor Mann, would you like to move that?
I would, yeah.
Moved by Councillor Mann, seconded by Councillor Sherry. You wish to speak to that, Councillor Mann?
Yes, I would. I'd just like to, on the first question in regarding the cyber security, my timing of my question was perfect. Obviously, the staff had a very comprehensive report ready to hit us in this board pack, council pack, and obviously we haven't published that. We can't tell the bad guys what we're up to, but it's well in hand. We needless to say, like most companies or bodies, there's a lot to do. It's a big space to play in. It's very much in the headlines at the moment. And I look forward to coming back with the workshops into where we get recommended that we take that on the risk versus reward sort of scenario that most people would look at. A question around the tree canopy stemmed from the breakfast the other week down at the Rotunda. Had some good discussions there, and again the Wellington tree canopy. The Wellington street tree strategy that we've just passed gave us a lot of information for Wellington, and interestingly, Wellington's 12% monophyes is 17%. Dubbo canopy today, in 2016 was around about 16.2%. So let's say we might be up around that 20% 5 years on from that, or 6 years on from that. The interesting point to me was that we don't formally have a target for a tree canopy, and the commentary is that the 20.8% in 2057 is basically seen as a non-formally adapted minimum target for that. But I think that's a very low bar, and in the last 20 years we've increased it 70% from 9.5 to 16.2% coverage. So I think we need to go away and catch up with this again in the new year in a lot bigger, bolder way, that we can work on an aspirational target as a community for our future generations to look forward to. Maybe there are some good papers out there. There's a Melbourne street tree strategy I was reading today. They've got a target of 40% by 2040, I believe. So, I think we can do a lot more from that. Everything we read, we're going to have longer summers, hotter days, higher temperatures. We're in the hottest part of New South Wales, so I think it just makes sense. So I thank you guys for the report. I thank staff for the report, and as I say, I look forward to probably revisiting this somewhere in the new year and making some more concrete steps towards a target. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Have any other discussion? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, excellent question from Councillor Mann on the tree canopy and that in Dubbo. It's interesting to note in the reply to his question on notice that the street tree planting budget has been reduced from 682,000, of which it was for 2 years, down to 100,000 in the current budget, and will be around that sort of level. If we want to set a decent target and meet that, we're going to have to fund it. That's the reality of it. The trees don't just plant themselves. We're going to need to plant them, except some palm trees that get spread around by birds and pop up everywhere. But we really need to, as a council, I believe, set a robust target and work out a way that we can meet that. One of the ways is going to be through funding it appropriately. And as Councillor Mann said, if we're planting a tree today, it's not really for us, it's for our kids or grandkids to make Dubbo a more livable city into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any further questions to debate? Councillor Wright.
A question without notice, actually. The report indicated there was $682,000 added to the forward budget back in 2020, 21 and 22. Any indication of how much of that money was actually spent, of that $682,000 when it was allocated in those budgets? On notice?
I note this, Mr Mayor, that's coming without notice.
Sorry.
Call questions on notice. I'll have to take that on notice and get back to you on the details.
Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further, Councillor Wright?
No, thank you.
Any other questions to debate, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Last item on the agenda CCL 22/329, comments and matters of urgency. I'll start on the right this time. Councillor Goff.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Black.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a few quick points. First of all, I'll start off by wishing all the viewers, residents and ratepayers out there a safe, happy and Merry Christmas. And a very quick reminder to make a comment on the Macquarie River Master Plan, the draft Master Plan, especially if you're concerned about the northwest area being a Northwest Regan Park for the 15,000 people who are going to live in there or would like to see some sporting fields down in the vicinity of the Gordon Estate. Another thing, if people are taking kids to the Dubbo Olympic pool, please ensure they're wearing a swimming nappy. Again, we've had a few incidents lately where the pools had to be closed. If you've got a little kid who's not toilet trained, please put them in a swimming nappy. I would also note the lack of road funding from state and federal grants, especially the state. Since the amalgamation of Wellington Shire and Dubbo City Council, the money has been spread very thin. We really do need a big catch-up from the state government to really do all the upgrades to the infrastructure that we need to do, to sewers and road networks and gutters and other things like that. I'd note the, after my comments at the previous council meeting regarding the stalled Dubbo Alcohol and Other Drug Rehab Centre, which we still haven't got a site more than 2 years later, in the Daily Liberal newspaper on the 2nd of December, the local member is quoted as making the following comments about myself in advocating for my community, for the betterment of my community. I would add, he's trying to make this political, said Mr Saunders. He's a Labor councillor, so my question to him would be, why is he trying to make it political? For him to start saying it's a political thing, that we're not announcing it, the site, is actually a massively political statement. I'd tell him to take his own head out of his own backside and worry about council issues. That is a state government issue that is absolutely being driven, and as soon as we can announce something, we will. End quote. Charming. Sometimes people show their true colours. Those comments have also been described as vulgar and offensive towards myself. It really is a council issue. I'm here doing my job, advocating for my community. We need a rehab centre, we need the site located, we need it in the appropriate site. And I 100% stand by my comments. I've been elected to local council to do my job, which I am doing. Yes, it is political. I'm a politician, local government. People don't like that, don't vote me on next time, but I'm here advocating for my community. It looks increasingly like the project will be delivered by the next state government because we're running out of time for this state government, so within a few months, might be announced in February or March, but that issue will 100% be delivered by the next government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Marr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Etheridge.
Sorry, Vic.
You're right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would just like to support Councillor Black in his deliberations on the rehab centre. The comment that it would be open by February is, I don't know where that came from, but it'll take longer than that to build it. We haven't even got the site confirmed yet, but I do believe that there is a site that they think that we're going to be very happy with, but at the moment they can't say anything. The Social Justice Committee, every time we have a meeting, we have a representative from Health come in by Zoom, and we put the pressure on them. We get the update of where we're up to, and the latest is I asked the lady if we could expedite this because it's already been 2 years. It's like the second coming of I don't know what. She said it's a very slow process. It's with the ministers, and there was really not much that she could do. We just got to do the process. So it's still a long way off yet, but we've got to keep the pressure on them, which we do in in our own small way on the Social Justice Committee. We will continue to keep the pressure on them to get this rehab up and going as soon as we can. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Burns.
Nothing to say, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to raise the issue of St John's wort, the noxious weed, particularly, well, it used to be classified as a noxious weed, as did lots of other weeds. Mainly in the eastern part of our LGA, it has become a major problem. And it seems to me that perhaps the same, and I might be wrong, and I know we've asked the CEO's going, and indeed the CEO is going to provide councillors with some advice on the current status of St John's wort and weed control generally. But it just seems that the change that came in effect a few years ago, whereby the Noxious Weeds Act was replaced by the Biosecurity Act, and then the introduction of the Local Land Services as a layer of government, perhaps working with government bodies in looking after the whole biosecurity issue, seems to me that some of the control of weeds in our LGAs has gone by the board, and I just think that, and that's been highlighted by the explosion of St John's wort in the area since the drought broke, and we've had 2 or 3 good wet, warm summers. It's obviously increased the weed supply and the seed supply of those weeds quite a lot, and I just think that it is an issue which perhaps further down the track a little bit, council should become more aware of exactly what the role of this council is in controlling some of those problem weeds.
Councillor Wright. Councillor Showering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to really wish Merry Christmas to local community and Happy New Year to the local community. And also I'll urge the local community, our local business been suffered with COVID and few other issues, so shop local and help, during this Christmas time, shop local and help our local business in Dubbo. Thank you. And Wellington.
Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. A couple of things. Firstly, I attended the community leaders breakfast with a number of the other councillors there a couple of weeks ago, and I know there's a couple of people in the public that have their thoughts on the fact that particular community leaders breakfast is a waste of time, but I give a perfect example of the fact that it isn't a waste of time when someone like Councillor Mann over here has a conversation with a local public member that wants to have a discussion about tree canopies and bits and pieces. So that's the sort of content and discussion that can be had just on a very relaxed and a casual type basis that is something that can be taken further up the line. So thanks to those people who come down. It was a pretty good crowd, and I certainly enjoyed having a debate on a couple of different items from some members of the public, and so thanks for them to taking advantage of that particular opportunity. And the other one is thanks to all my fellow councillors. It's been nearly 12 months since we sort of sat in our first meeting here. I think we're about 2 weeks off, so it's been an interesting 12 months, and I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot from all of you as well. So look, thanks very much for contributing and helping my 12 months as a councillor to be pretty enjoyable 12 months. So a couple of years to go, so we'll see how we go from here. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm pretty much going to say what a couple of other councillors have already said. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the community leaders breakfast that we attended on the last month at the end of November, and I agree with what Councillor Wright was saying, that it's really good that the community and the public get to come along and have a chat with councillors and other staff. But there was 3 tiers of government were at this particular meeting, or is at these meetings, sorry, and that's local, state and federal, and it's a really good conversation when you get people coming to talk about a lot of different things, and I think we all have the same goal, and that's to have better communities. But one of the things one of the community members did say to a couple of us is, what has this council achieved in the last 12 months? And I thought, oh gosh, that's a really big question. So I've had time to go away and reflect and think about what have we achieved. And when you think about it, we've been here for just 12 months, not quite 12 months, and really what we're seeing unfold for us is a lot of plans that have been put in place long before we came on board. But there are things that we've had an opportunity to influence, and that's the conversation, and that's the people's insight to the Macquarie River Master Plan or the AOD, putting pressure on, the LHD or state government around, hurry up and announce things, or the Youth Koori Court, which will open in February next year, or the Dubbo, or the care list, which is going to align with the Youth Koori Court, which is for children in care and how they go through the court systems. But there's so many things that we've had an opportunity on the committees that we've established, and that we're all, chairs of different committees and get an opportunity to be, influential in those and have strong connections with community. So I think that when you do sit down and think and do some reflection on the 12 months or almost 12 months that we've been here, that there are things that we can celebrate that we've had an opportunity to do as 10 strong. And I'm really, I would like to say that I'm really thankful that I've got the opportunity to be elected and be a part of such a great group of people. We can have really strong debate and still have an agreement we might agree to disagree. And I think that's important that we do as a council and lead by example. And the other thing I think I wanted to sort of finish off with is, this is the last council for the year, and Christmas is approaching us, and it's the festive season, and people will have lots of fun. And just remember that Christmas doesn't always mean great things for everybody in the community. It can be a really challenging time of the year for people that don't have much, or people that struggle, or people that are lonely, or socially isolated. And I don't want to put a dampener on the fact that Christmas is great and it's a festive season. And for me, I'm fortunate to have lots of kids and lots of grandkids and be surrounded by them, whether we have gifts or not. It's about the day and the connection. But some people don't get that opportunity. So if you see that, or if you want to do any sort of contribute in any way, reach out and have a look in your community where you can help people from your community. So thank you for the year. I look forward to the next year. And yeah, Merry Christmas to all of the staff too, because they're amazing.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Just a couple of things that have happened over the last couple of weeks I thought are worth mentioning. CWA branch in Dubbo, the first CWA branch in the state, in fact in the nation, was created on the 26th of April 1922. The second one, that was in Crookwell, the second one in the state was on the 8th of June in Dubbo. So the Dubbo branch of CWA was the second one in the state, so they celebrated 100 years of function recently, and so that was the greatest of the great work they've done over the years. Has been quite fantastic, and listening to them, they're talking about the fact they advocated for telephone exchanges back in the 1930s, so they've really changed what they do, and they've actually morphed and been very agile as an organisation, so they've done a great thing there. The other one I think I'd like to mention would be Mark Gibson, the VRA Commissioner, had a retirement function over the last 2 weeks, and he's given 50 years of service to the VRA, 10 years as the Commissioner. And again, when you sit around and we had a retirement function there, when you look at the people in the room and volunteers and people that are prepared to put their lives on the line for the rest of us, we are very fortunate in this community. And the Minister was there, and I said, I'm not planning on having an accident or emergency or a disaster, but if I was going to have one, this community is the one that I want to have it in, because I think we've got some great support personnel there who are risking their lives and doing some fantastic things for the community. The other one that I'd like to mention is the CSU graduation, and it's great to see graduations back in the physical form. They had virtual ones over the last couple of years, but you get an idea of just how advanced this community is. It's only been there for 22 years, CSU, and to see so many people in there, including at least one staff member that I saw from council who's gone through being supported by council to gain his second degree there through that process. But seeing all those people in the room there, knowing that many of those people wouldn't have achieved a degree if they didn't have that local ability to do it here. So that's a great thing that we have in our community, obviously. And the other one was the Terrabella Bridge opening. Thank you, Councillor Marr and Councillor Ivey for coming out to that. $4.37 million project, $2.716 million put in by fixing country roads, $454,000 put in by fixing country bridges, $700,000 by the Bridge Renewal Program, only $500,000 by council. Are large projects that are small, only partly funded in a small way by council and the state and federal government, obviously contribute to that significantly. So that was a major upgrade, and that's the third bridge that's been at Terrabella found out the other day that one had been knocked down in 1941 and then rebuilt, and then this one here, obviously, we replaced one there. But the old bridge, the old Terrabella Bridge, for anyone that knows that, they know how skinny it is, people used to drive their headers across that with the wheels balanced up on the side metal railings to actually get across that bridge. So we don't want people in our community doing that. So that was a significant upgrade at Terrabella, and the Belmont Bridge is one of the other ones that we're upgrading as part of the Fixing Country Bridges program. So that'll be the one as well, because I know cyclists talk all the time when they ride across the Belmont Bridge, they've got to get off and walk across because there's little skinny gaps here that the tyres have to go down. But obviously that'll be more for the farmers around that particular area. So a couple of minor ones. I just want to say acknowledgement to Rod Towney, who was a former Deputy Mayor of Dubbo, who ended up in hospital this week, so he's been a bit ill, so I just want to send my best wishes to Rod Towney, who was a great advocate, a great Aboriginal councillor for all my previous time on council, from 2004 to 2016, so best wishes to Rod. And the Community Leaders Breakfast, just to comment on that too, I think one of the great things that people love about that is not just, as Councillor Wright and Councillor Wells talked about, not just the fact that they came down and talked to people, Damien, Councillor Mann, about various things, but the fact that they had the ability to go down. So we mightn't get 55,000 people there, but 55,000 people have the option to come down and talk to those three levels of government. And I think people really appreciate the openness and the transparency there. And very lastly, councillors are right, it's 15 days before we hit our 1 year anniversary from our induction day, 23rd of December last year. You all well remember the induction day. We sat around not knowing what the next year would have in front of us. I think to Councillor Wells' point about what you've achieved, I think the main thing we've achieved is stability. So we've got stability in council, we've got some confidence out there in the community with this council, which I think is fantastic, and I think people have confidence in going forward in some of the decision making. But I've actually really enjoyed the last year, so I do thank all my fellow councillors for the last year. It's an unknown when you come into council. I didn't know it was going to happen, even though I've been on council before, but it's a new environment. We have a new CEO. Congratulations to Murray Wood on the great work that he's done over the last year, and as both Councillor Wright and Councillor Wells talked about in terms of our staff, we do have over 500 full-time staff who do a wonderful job there, but I've really enjoyed the time with council's been a whole range of different issues that have been thrown at us, a whole range of things that we've had to deal with through the year. I think we've dealt with them with our head held high. We've debated the issues, we've discussed the issues, we've given respect for each other, and I think ultimately we've had good decisions that we've been able to enact for the community. So thank you to my fellow councillors. And to the broader community, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll see you all again in February next year, but of course we'll keep working until that time. So thank you. What I'll do now is I'll ask someone, I'll just read this first, under section 10A of the Local Government Act, the next item being CCL 22/330, 331, 332, 333, 334, 335, 336, 337, 338 and 339, in addition to the mayoral minute that we brought up before, have been identified as likely to be discussed in a closed session of council. Can someone move us into confidential session? Thank you, Councillor Showery, seconded by Councillor Goff, to deal with that. And before we debate that, we've had no applications from members of the public to make their representations regarding whether men should be closed to the public. Do any members of the public in the public gallery have any comments to make regarding the proposal to hear the items in a closed section, and under section 10A4 of the Act, arguments for or against confidentiality? Anyone from the public gallery? No, thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, councillors. Any discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you to the public and for coming along and viewing today. So the stream will now be turned off. Any members of the public will be asked to leave the chamber. The chamber will reopen and the live stream restarted after deliberations on these matters, with the resolutions to be made public. Thank you, Ms. Wade.
We're back live.
Okay. You, council, returned to open session at 8:37 p.m. Welcome back. I'll now read the resolutions from the confidential session. CCL 22/330, the tender for construction of infrastructure delivery office. motion was, the resolution was, number one, that council reject all tenders on the basis that all tenders exceed the budget amount. Two, the council enter in negotiation to the two lowest cost conforming tenderers with a view to reduce the cost of the constructions to meet budget expectations, as it is not considered that inviting fresh tenders will produce a favourable result. Three, the council delegate to the CEO the authority to award the winning tender. Point four, the council delegate the chief executive officer to approve the extension options for this tender if required. Five, the council delegate the chief executive officer to approve variations to a contract relating to the tender subject to budget limitations. Point six, that all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential with council. Point seven, that all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of council. In relation to CCL 22/331, quotation for the supply and delivery of 3 dual control 6x4 side loading green waste collection trucks. The resolution was, point one, that the quotation from Superior Pack to supply 3 Volvo FE trucks fitted with Superior Pack compactor bodies for the purchase price of $1.392849 million be approved. That plant number 7, 11, 7, 12 and 2715 be sent to Pickles Auction for disposal. Point three, that all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential with council. Point four, that all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of council. In relation to CCL 22/332, tender for the Troy Gully Sewer Pump Station Augmentation Works, the resolution from council was, point one, that SNG Engineering Proprietary Limited be engaged for contract T22-002 construction and upgrade works for Troy Gully for the tendered amount of $2,912,255.50 million, including GST. Point two, that $1.6 million be moved from restricted assets and allocated to the project. Point three, that all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential to council. Point four, that all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of council. In relation to CCL 22/333, tender for the Netball Courts resurfacing William McGrath complex, the resolution for council was, point one, the tenders received for the Netball Courts resurfacing at William McGrath complex be noted. Point two, the Dubbo Regional Council engages L. Don Sporting Areas Proprietary Limited for the resurfacing of Netball Courts at William McGrath complex for the amount of $432,184, including GST. Point three, the council delegate the chief executive officer to approve variations to a contract relating to the tender subject to budget limitations or change of scope of works. Point four, that all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential with council. Point five, that all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of council. In relation to CCL 22/334, tender for the installation of sports lighting on the John McGrath fields, the resolution of council was, point one, that the tenders received for the John McGrath sports lights be noted. Point two, that Dubbo Regional Council engages Hayden Jack Proprietary Limited, trading as O'Brien Electrical Dubbo, for John McGrath sports lights for the amount of $710,083, including GST. Point three, the council delegate the chief executive officer to approve variations to a contract relating to the tender subject to budget limitations or change of scope of works. Point four, that all documentation in relation to the matter remain confidential with council. Point five, that all documentation in relation to the matter be signed under the common seal of council. In relation to CCL 22/335, expression of interest, corporate partnership program, event attraction. Point one, the council note the progress of the corporate partnership program to date. Point two, that a further report be provided to council following the closure of the expression of interest process. Point three, that the documents and considerations regarding this matter remain confidential to council. In relation to CCL 22/336, update and investigations for the creation of a special purpose vehicle for residential development, the resolution of council was, point one, that the report of management property and land development be noted. Point two, that all matters within this report are kept confidential to council. In relation to CCL 22/337, tender for the construction of a 3D concrete amenities building, Lions Park, the resolution of council was, point one, that council reject all tenders on the basis that all tenders exceed the budget amount. Point two, that council enter into negotiations with the two conforming tenderers with a review to reduce the costs of the constructions to meet budget expectations, as it is not considered that inviting fresh tenders will produce a favourable result. Point three, the council delegate to the CEO the authority to award the winning tender within the budget allocated amount. Point four, the council delegate the CEO to approve variations to a contract relating to the tender limitations. Five, that all documentation relations may remain confidential to council. In relation to CCL 22/338, update strategic information communication technology risk management, the resolution of council was that the report by the Chief Information Officer dated 8 December 2022 be noted. In relation to CCL 22/311, expression of interest, the Greens update, the resolution of council was, that based on the independent review of the earlier applications, the council enters into a sub-licence agreement with New South Wales Rugby Union for 74 Winterboro Street, Dubbo, for an annual sub-licence fee of $31,460 including GST, in addition to all operating costs with an estimated annual value of $43,000 including GST, for a term of 1 year with a 1-year option. Point 2, the council delegate authority to the CEO to negotiate the other terms of the licence agreement, including the amount of rent which may be the subject of a grant of financial assistance under section S356 of the Local Government Act 1993. Point 3, that any necessary documentation in relation to this matter be executed over the Commonwealth of Council. Point 4, that the premises must be shared by the successful applicant with existing licence holder, Dubbo Filmmakers, who occupies a portion of the site. Point 5, that all applicants be notified of the outcome of the expression of interest. Point 6, that the information contained in this report remain confidential to the council. And the last one, Ms. Rouse, if I could have that one, please.
Item CCL 22/339, Annual Performance Review of the Chief Executive Officer. Resolution 1, that this council receive and endorse the CEO Performance Review Report, and in doing so acknowledge and commend the CEO for the excellent leadership that is demonstrated for Dubbo Regional Council in the last 12 months. 2, that this council recognise the input and support that the CEO has given to councillors to fulfil their roles. 3, that council recognise the CEO embodies the organisational values being progressive, sustainable, one team and integrity. 4, that the CEO continue to develop the areas discussed during the performance appraisal.
Thank you, Ms. Rouse. There are no further items for consideration of the ordinary council meeting, and I declare the meeting closed, the time being 8:43 p.m. Web streaming is now being completed. Thank you for your attendance. Please stop this way.